Yesterday on the show, we implied that Fox and Friends' big predictions about how Joe Biden would probably pass away in the middle of yesterday's press conference were easy predictions to make, because if they were wrong, if he didn't do a bad job, if he didn't dribble all over himself, their audience would never know because they're not gonna watch, and they're only going to experience a very limited cut down version of it that will be provided to them by, I predicted, Sean Hannity. I was a little bit off, but I want you to take a look at the follow-up to yesterday's predictions today on Fox and Friends.
The best way to get something done, if it holds near and dear to you that you like to be able to, anyway. We're going to get a lot done. When I was United States Senator, Vice President, am I giving you too long an answer? Because if you don't want the detail. No, but I don't know how much detail you want about immigration. Okay, where am I here? Let me see.
Do you agree?
Yes.
If not, why not abolish it if it's a relic of the Jim Crow era?
And so I'm convinced that we'll be able to stop this because it is the most pernicious thing. This makes Jim Crow look like Jim Eagle. Successful electoral politics is the art of the possible. You got the right code for your credit card. What was your dog's name? Okay, hang on. Sorry. Oh man.
Yeah, it was kind of hard to watch at times. He did seem confused, no idea what he was talking about. I didn't understand what he was talking about. He rambled on until he apparently would occasionally either run out of gas or run out of words and then pause for a moment. You know, maybe he was searching for a new direction or a new word, couldn't find it, changed the subject. Ultimately, maybe he was just rusty. What was it, 65 days? He hasn't had a formal press conference, so maybe he should have done it earlier. But nonetheless, a lot of people are going, what was up with Joe yesterday?
Yeah, a lot of people are going, what is up with Joe? Or we really, really want people to be going, what's up with Joe? So we cut together this thing. Like, okay, Brett, so there were a couple of parts of that were, like what Biden's been like for the past year, where he's either searching for something and doesn't get it or something. Some of that very tightly cut together thing was just him saying things that out of context sound weird, but like, I have no idea what the context is. You haven't provided it. So they weren't it's not like put bleach in your body where I don't care what the context is, that's crazy. That's like there's manipulation, and then there's really try hard, thirsty manipulation. I think that's what we saw right there.
Right, if I was producing that, I'd be like, so this is what you think about. What does your montage do? Is your montage telling us that he has lost it? Well, then you have to actually prove that. You can't just make up the proof by going through and just taking half of a sentence followed by another half of a different sentence. Like, it doesn't communicate that. I will say that some of what they did was genuinely funny, and there was like a successful montage in there somewhere when he's like losing his train of thought and rails off. They just ruin it for themselves by putting in like that random question from the I think it's an NBC or CNN, Caitlin Collins.
Caitlin Collins?
Yeah,
I don't even know what that was in there for.
Exactly.
That was just a question.
It was just there. So it's like, what are you guys doing? And it makes me so mad because they have like a vast teams at Fox and Friends to do this kind of stuff. And when you see a lazy montage like that, what it really actually does is just prove that they don't have to work hard. They just get to they've created this whole ecosystem at Fox News. It's like those little terrariums that you don't eat, that don't seem like you have to water them or anything. It just is a self-sustaining cycle of fungus.
Exactly. Yeah, like there's, as Wosny Lambre and I were saying yesterday, there's any number of different ways you can criticize Biden on the substance, but they don't want to engage with the substance because then you're acknowledging crises that Fox doesn't want to acknowledge. They don't want to acknowledge things having to do with wages, income inequality, access to health insurance, stuff like that. So they end up talking about nonsense, stuff that has nothing to do with Joe Biden, like Dr. Seuss, or the big problem with Biden is that he stumbles occasionally. Yes, he does stumble. It's a reason potentially, I guess, to go with younger politicians. But their issue fundamentally isn't with someone stumbling or rambling on, as they say. Yes, they'd never like a president who rambles like Donald Trump. Like Biden occasionally flames out a bit and doesn't know exactly what he wants to say. When Trump does that, he starts talking about backed up toilets and how you get cancer from windmills. That's worse, I would argue. And please criticize Joe Biden on the promises he hasn't kept. Like they could point out, as we do all the time, that he said he would cancel student loan debt and he hasn't done that. He hasn't explained why. But they don't want to make those criticisms because then they'd have to acknowledge that we have a crisis of student loan debt and that in theory the government could do something to fix that. They don't want either part of that equation. So instead we get this nonsense.
Yeah, I think I'm paranoid that you were just throwing to a video right there because it sounded a little like that.
No, sorry.
It's like take us out too. Anyways, but my other favorite thing is Steve Ducey saying like he just rambles on as though he doesn't know what he's going to talk about next, and he's searching for a word, and it doesn't make any sense. There's no structure there, and you were waiting for him to say, "And that's my job." Exactly. My job here at Fox and Friends is to ramble about nothing for an hour and a half. And I do want to talk about the friends they have on Fox and Friends now. Rachel Campos Duffy is a reality show reject who is just basically like sucker fishing her way into relevance at every possible turn. And so is Will Cain. Will Cain is the absolute worst person on television. He's a journeyman freaking like guy who will say anything about any subject for you to hire him. He just came from ESPN and he is this darling, and I hate people who do that adaptation based on what show they're on. Jedediah Bila did it when she was on The View. She had one set of opinions she felt comfortable in expressing, but when she now went back to Fox and Friends for a while, she turned into this like crazy conservative, and she even got like the new hairdo to fit in at Fox. Will Cain, he puts on his whole act where he's now saying these like half thought through, like not really relevant attack lines from the conservative Twitter sphere, and it's just garbage.
It is 100%. Anyway, get ready for a lot of it because they're not gonna like they don't have some of the specific stuff about Obama, as Wozniak was talking about yesterday. They don't want to engage on the substance. Like the closest they can get is something like immigration. Even then, they have to tread carefully to not acknowledge the sort of human aspect of the crisis. It just has to be about numbers and crossing and stuff, which we'll get to. But
it's not anyway. It's just one last thing. It's not even consistent. Like Hannity today was saying, or on his show after the press conference, Hannity was saying that Biden was too prepared.
I know. Well, so that there's nothing that he can do, and they say that the entire thing was scripted, or they say, he referred to his notes too much. Now, let's get all of our criticism about his binder of answers out of the way before Kayleigh McEnany joins us, because that would be awkward. But yeah, and no president ever has notes that they have printed that they then Sharpie all over. No president would ever do that. It's just the whole thing is every politician goes back to canned answers. Ted Cruz may not have notes, but you can see in real time his little possum brain trying to work out what answer he'd like, or what question he'd like to answer rather than one you just gave him. That's just the way politics works. It's awful, but it isn't Biden's invention.
For more political news, breakdowns, interviews, stories of activism, and me trying my hardest to care about the occasional big celebrity news story, subscribe to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/thedamagereport. And you can ring the bell wherever it is so you don't miss anything.